Hey guys, Justin Nelson here from the Dallas headquarters once again. Believe it's episode number 3, actually back live in person in a real studio, not sitting in my underwear at my house like I have been for the last few years. And so with that being said, guys, we have another awesome, great guest today, my man Bryce, who funny enough, I met for the first time while I was probably having a few too many drinks while out on the seas at an event. I've already told Bryce that he's not allowed to share any stories from that cruise that Moose and I were on unless it's a good one that doesn't involve myself. But with that being said, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, so good to see you again under different circumstances. Like it's way different right now.
Absolutely. I think the first time I met you, I might have been a few Jack and Cokes in my younger days. What was that, 2-3 years ago, maybe now?
That's crazy. Has it been 2?
It might have been 2 years. And I remember on that cruise, I remember just kind of like a random fact that, there's 50 states, I think, in America. There's billions of people in the world. And we have a very common connection back to where we both went to college, which I think is pretty crazy. Maybe we'll get into that here in a minute. But I just remember that distinctively. But before we get into that, man, I always like to ask, everybody on the show, like, what do you do and how do you make money? Right. I think one thing that a lot of times I had a few podcasts, I think it was yesterday, Bryce, where someone, I said, what do you do? And they started talking for about an hour about what they did. And I was like, do you make money? And they're like, oh, no, that's my side project. So I would love to know, like, Bryce, what do you do and how do you make money?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a father. So parenting, that's a big part of my life, working out. But for work, I'm co-founder, CEO of a company called CloseBot. It's conversational AI for lead qualification, booking appointments on autopilot through your HubSpot, high-level, or custom-built CRM. And that is also how I make money. That's not a side project.
Nice. I love that. Now, that was vibe coded like yesterday, right? And launched yesterday, and you're just now promoting it for the first time?
Right. No, way back when I worked at Boeing as a software developer.
Okay.
I'm going to come full circle here.
Yeah, I love it. Give us a story, man.
I worked at Boeing, loved software, loved the AI prototype projects I was working on, but I hated working in corporate. It was just a soul suck. So I told myself I would do anything to get out. And that turned out to be real estate wholesale, which was knocking on foreclosure homes, getting guns pulled on me, like crazy stuff, sales related. And
now you said you were working in AI in Boeing. I hate to interrupt because I know it, but our audience may not know. This was not like 2025, right? When were you first touching AI back in the Boeing days?
I left in it was 2019.
Okay.
I left. So probably 2015 is when I started.
Okay, cool.
The AI work there.
Yeah. So AI has been around since 2015. Most people think it's been around since like 2022, right? So it's been around that long.
Now. Yeah. It's a lot different.
I love it. Sorry for interrupting there, but I just wanted to touch base on that because I think a lot of our audience is like, oh, like ChatGPT's been around since whatever. That's when AI started. And it's like, no, it's been around for much smarter people than I, like yourself, much, much longer.
It was much less accessible.
Yeah, I love it.
It was really fun. And I learned a ton. And I finally got to the point where I was making enough money in real estate sales that I left Boeing. And then I realized I hated sales. So I was kind of stuck in a similar situation. And I did the trap a lot of people do. I started tinkering more in tech, automations. Then I was spending time doing sales. Anyone listening, if you're in a sales role, don't do that. Like, focus on sales. But out of that came what is CloseBot today. I was using the knowledge that I learned at Boeing working in AI to start to automate some of the responses to our cold outreach in real estate sales. And it wasn't until the models got good enough that it ended up actually working really well. That was also when the real estate market took a dump. So I was left with this amazing product that I couldn't make money from in real estate. So I turned to selling it to other people. And that is CloseBot.
I love that. So you took something that you were using for yourself, right? And kind of reinventing it, but then taking it nationwide and kind of letting anybody use it. And were you real estate focused first on
Yeah.
CloseBot and then expanded? Because I know I know a whole bunch of our companies that that we mentor on the VA side all use you guys. I know at least 10 off the top of my head, and they're not in anything related to real estate. So you're niche down now, from what I understand, right?
Yeah. I was going wherever people would take me because I needed to make money.
That makes sense.
So at first it was real estate, and then we got people in home services, and I was like, sure, yeah, it can work for that.
Yeah.
Real quick, like, let me do it.
Now, so for those listening that, I obviously know a ton about your software, like to really dumb it down, like, how does the product work exactly, right? So if I own a, plumbing business, how am I installing CloseBot into my business?
Typically, people will have a CRM already. So CloseBot is not designed to be a replacement for that. It's meant to connect with that CRM, whether that be HubSpot, High Level, or something else, and then automate messages on any channels that you want, whether you have texting set up or a live chat widget or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, Instagram DM, wherever you're chatting with leads, you can have CloseBot automate those conversations toward whatever your goal is, qualifying those leads, booking appointments, following up.
And I believe in some of the platforms, it even helps schedule. Is that correct? I know that's a stat that I always see that you post about, like, hey, we had 1 million schedules, this last quarter, or whatever the stat may be. So it sounds like a lot of the purpose of the chats, maybe not always, but a lot of the times is to book more appointments too.
About 50% of the people use it for appointment booking.
Okay, cool. Now your high level users, like, and I don't mean like go high level, like your users that are using it at like a super high level. What are you seeing mostly that them using it for? Like, are you seeing them like, because I know you said it could do anything that's messaging based on those different platforms. Like if I'm running Facebook ads or if I'm running different things like that, I'm assuming a lot of that is, being implemented early on in the follow-up process. Is that right? Or long-term follow-up, or like, how does that work with your guys' system?
We have 2 tracks of people. We have people who are doing large scale outbound. So they're texting a lot of people. And when a reply comes in, they want CloseBot to handle that conversation, qualify them, disqualify them, add tags to update the pipeline stages, and ultimately book appointments. And then we have the people that are working on an inbound funnel. So they have Facebook Messenger ads running, for example. And they want something there to respond within seconds when someone shows interest and they message in about some specific offer.
I love that. So I would love to kind of take a little different route here before I kind of go into some more of the questions. Like, I'd love for you to consult me, because I think that might kind of teach our audience some things. So like right now, our company, we spend about $100,000 a month in Facebook ads, right? We generate probably 6,000 to 7,000 leads. All those leads come into our CRM. My team will obviously call them. My team will text them, right? We're in a CRM that doesn't have texting automation. That's a discussion for a whole nother, episode maybe. But like, so we have 10 to 15 drip texts that go out trying to book them, but there's no conversation happening there, right? Like all people are getting the 10 to 15 texts, whether they book, whether they don't book, right? There's no dynamic there. And then obviously if someone calls us, text us back, goes to our website, it's all very dynamic. So if you're working with someone like myself, how are you setting it up? Obviously, I'd need to go get something like a High Level or a HubSpot that you guys are integrated with. And I know you guys have a whole bunch of options there. But like, what are you advising me? Like, what am I leaving on the table, by just, going, hey, every lead that comes into my system is getting 10 to 15, plain messages. Every person gets the same 10 to 15 messages. Every message has a link in there to book a call, right? There's no conversation at all. Like, what am I leaving on the table that that I don't even know about?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's almost like you own an orchard and you only take the first batch of apples that falls on the ground. You're just taking like the easy route. There's still all these apples in the tree, but for that, you need a ladder. You have to go pick them. But most of the apples are up in the tree. Most of your business is laying in the people that don't resonate with that first message, and they have a question. They sent a question in and they got a canned response 1 day later asking why they didn't book.
Well, and what's funny, I'll even tell you this, and maybe this will help you give you some info. We don't even check the responses. Like it is purely just outbound 15 text messages. Hopefully they book. If they don't, we'll figure it out one day. So, so like in your conversations, like in my world, we're selling virtual assistants. What would like one of the first messages look like if you were running mine for me? Like if you had to craft a first message and I'm selling virtual assistants, are you trying to elicit a response from them to say something, to ask a question? Like, I know there's a lot of different ways to do it, but like right now we don't try and elicit a response. It's like, hey, thank you for submitting a lead info, book your call here. We're ready to help you out. But I'm assuming in your case, you're not going just straight to, hey, here's a link to book a call. Hi, I'm Justin. I'm assuming you're trying to elicit something that's going to cause a conversation to go deeper. Is that fair?
Yeah, it sounds like they're pretty high quality, high intent leads, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say low quality lead source, but they're only getting the text if they had requested more information. So higher intent than just random cold text.
It's nice to kind of jar them. So in your case, it would be cool to send that basic templated text.
Yeah,
and then track whether or not they book or whether or not they click the link, and then something totally unexpected if they don't. Like if you had a message go out that says, oh, sorry, I must have the wrong number, or did you accidentally inquire about the greatest VAs on the planet? Like, come off
is that because
message.
Okay, so it shows that it's not just some automation that we let rip with no thought towards them.
Yeah. And it can be cool to send a message that seems like a template, followed by one that's like, this is a totally different style. This must be human. And you'll likely get a response to that, in which case CloseBot is trained on your site, your FAQ, and they might say something like, oh yeah, I was just looking and it's way too expensive for me. Mm-hmm. CloseBot's trained on all your stuff. It can be trained on how to handle objections like that, and it can overcome that.
Nice. I love that. Now, for those listening here, like I know a lot of my audience, they're in Go High Level, they're in HubSpot, but for someone like myself, and I actually had this question the other day about you, and I didn't actually know how to answer it. I should have just connected them to you. Someone said, well, what if I'm not in HubSpot? What if I'm not in Go High Level? Like, is there still a way for me to feed like maybe all of my leads into a Go High Level and have it work it while I maybe still live in my other CRM? Or like, what do you suggest is kind of like a workaround because you guys are niched into those big platforms?
Yeah. First of all, you can use CloseBot standalone with our API. That's more of a technical thing, so you can. And we are building out more of our own native channels, so you can use it standalone purely within CloseBot and not have to piece things together with code.
Nice.
But us in HubSpot, when we run a database reactivation campaign, we import all of our contacts into High Level, a burner account, and do it out of High Level because we don't want our regular phone number in HubSpot to be burned. Spin up a sub account, import all of them, start your drip sequence, and then have it set up so when someone is qualified, it updates the contact in HubSpot, and then we know to contact them.
That makes sense. Well, that makes sense. Well, now I know who I'm going to be getting in contact with you, and his name is Moose Reed, our sales director, because it's something I looked at yesterday, and I was like, man, like, our phone calls are great. We hammer the phones. We hammer them, but it's like the text messaging, like our team just, outside of the 10 to 15 canned messages, we don't check back in. So like from my point of view, Bryce, like if I send that first message, and they don't respond, is it like a timing sequence post that like 5-10 minutes later automatically if that person hasn't booked, it's going to send them that next? Like, how does that work, right? Like, how does it work when someone hasn't said anything for 3 months? Like, do I have to return on a campaign to try and activate them? Or like, how far out can I kind of go, oh, CloseBot can handle this follow up for a bit?
It's up to what your risk tolerance is a little bit. There's an expiration on opt-in.
Yep. Cool. But it depends on what the person's willing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. There's different states, different laws, and different things like that. So cool. No, that totally makes sense. Let me ask you this. This is something I always ask a lot of our guests is like, what's the biggest thing you're focused on growing right now? Like, what's a big project for you? You've been in this AI space longer than most people have even known what AI is. Like, what are you guys kind of focusing on, over at CloseBot right now?
Our foundation has always been conversational AI, and that's all we're focused on. So with that, our own foundational research into which models perform best under which scenarios, whether there are new best practices for prompting, like these are all the things that we focus on. We are building out more on the analytics side within CloseBot and more like prompting split testing. And that just goes hand in hand with the research. We need the ability to split test, and we want to share that with our users. That's our big focus for the next quarter.
Nice. I love that. Next question I usually have, man, with kind of on that thing is like, what is one thing you do today that most people in your industry are not doing? And I think that's a great question for you because, I think there's a million of you now in the industry that think they're you, right? They think their vibe coded app is going to be the next big thing. They think it's like safe. They think it's secure. They think it can hold 1 million users. So like, what are you doing today that most people in the industry, aren't doing?
Saying no more to features. A lot of people don't understand every time you release a feature, that draws focus away from whatever your core was to also put some focus into that. There are always going to be bugs. People are always going to ask for iterations on that thing. And as you build more and more features out, that's less depth you can go into. It's a dangerous place to be in the area where it's really easy to build shallow.
Yeah.
Building depth is still just as hard as it ever was. But if you find yourself building out feature after feature, you are now shallow, and it's so much easier for some 19-year-old vibe code pro to come and crush your business because you didn't build deep. So saying no to features.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So like how do you respond to the clients that, are coming from platforms that obviously, build 1 million features, they're shallow and they're like, Bryce, but this has this has this, this has this, how do you explain to someone, well, it's like, yeah, that's great. They have all those things, but it's going to, like, how do you win those customers over?
We really don't. We're finding that our ICP, so our ideal client profile, is changing a little bit away from the people who are experimenters and love to hack stuff together, and they're okay if it breaks sometimes. And we're moving more into the enterprise realm where you can't have things break ever. Yeah. You need them to be compliant. You need them to be secure. They need to know that there's a certain service level agreement for uptime. And that's a much more fun place to be because then we don't have to have those conversations.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And kind of on that note, this is something I was really looking forward to asking you is like, what is your favorite AI tool? Like, obviously you have your tool. I'm sure it's your favorite, you're biased to it, but like outside of your world, outside of your company, like is there anything fun you're playing with? I'm sure you play with all kinds of fun, techie, nerdy stuff that most of us don't even know anything about, right? But as far as like public market, that's something we might recognize, whether it's like an OpenClaw, Manus, like, again, all things that are just crazy out there. Like, what's your favorite AI tool out on the market right now?
Here's the surprising thing. I really spend so little time working with tools, and typically I'll find one that works and then I just stick with that for forever.
I love that.
Because if I get distracted, that's so much time wasted. Yeah. That is such valuable time I can never get back if it proves to be a waste of time, which usually today is. Of course, I hope you guys are listening and you try CloseBot. And then here I am saying, don't go waste your time on tools. But if you find one that works, stick with it. I am using Claude Code and I'm using Cursor. I use them for slightly different things. And it's all around assisted AI development, of course, reviewed by our dev team. But also, if I want it to just churn through customer data and output a report for me, or graphs on what it finds. Like just a couple months ago, I took all of our churn data and put it into Claude Code and said, hey, look through this, and I want you to chart anything that you can based on the columns you have. And I had a full report with charts, and it brought really valuable insights. So you can do a lot with Claude Code.
I love that. And I think that's something interesting that I've heard. It's like, I use Claude Code a little bit, and I had a little bit of coding experience. Actually got taught a little bit from the college, Mutual College, back in South Dakota, the School of Mines, but I got enough just to be deadly. But I was playing Claude Code the other day, and my buddy Moose, he's like, dude, can you teach me Claude Code? And I'm like, I can, but like, it's still such a hard tool to use if you don't have. I can only somewhat use it, I feel, legitimately, and it's even slightly just because I had some code background. Like, I couldn't even imagine some of these tools that are being made by people and they have no code background. I'm like, personally, I'm scared to like even put my information to log into there just due to the security risk and different things. I'm like, I don't even know how to hack something, and I think I figured out how to hack yours, right? Just from a few standpoints, I like that. So on that note, man, like, it was funny. I saw a Facebook post of yours the other day, and maybe it was the wrong person. I'm pretty sure it was you, and you said, I'm going to go back on tour or something. Maybe you were messaging me. I'm going to start, speaking a lot more about something. What was that something about? So I know you're like, I want to get this message out a little bit more. I don't know if it was a war against vibe coders. Maybe I'm misquoting you there, but like, what was it that you were wanting to go out and really kind of talk more about to the open market?
Oh, there is so much misinformation out there. I had a post talking about AI productivity theater. These videos of people sharing their Jarvis system where they speak to it and it does everything for them, or claims of quick money through this tool or that tool, and all of it's nonsense, and all of it's ultimately putting business owners out of business. Yeah. These gurus are in the business of distracting business owners, and it's ruining their business. So spreading the word on what is real information and what's not. And ultimately it comes down to if it sounds too good to be true, it likely is.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Like whenever you're looking at a business, because, you obviously see businesses way beyond just, Closebot obviously has a very niche down purpose in a business, and probably the most important aspect of sales, follow-up, conversion, all those things. But like when you're looking at a business, like what should a business, if you're advising them, like what should they be looking at AI first? Because I look at like, you mentioned the home services industry. I look at like plumbers and electricians and all these different places. And I can be like, okay, I have a buddy that sells some like AI phone conversational installs, right? And he'll go into an electrician business that's, antiquated, it's outdated. And he's going to go, hey, you get 20 calls a month. You only answer one of them. I'm going to get those other 19 answered, and we're going to get some more of those emergency plumbing, emergency electrical calls, mold mitigation, right? Like I can see a direct impact of that install resulting in money because it's trackable. Okay, we answered all 20 calls, 10 resulted in business. Now you made an extra 20 grand. Like that, I can see like a fictional, or not a fictional, a factual, right? A factual return on that install and what the AI did. But then like you're talking about the Jarvis, like I had a buddy that's like logs in and goes, hey, I wanted my social media posts made, but then it spit back something really shitty. And he's like, all right, now we got to do this. Now we got to do this. And it's like, yeah, you had the cool clap and the cool talk, but you still had to do 19 other things to make sure that thing got done the right way. And so like, talk to me about that. Like if you're consulting a business, what should they be looking at first if they're trying to AI their business?
Yeah, I think it's important to look at what problems you have and not look first at what tools are out there. Because if you know all the tools that exist, you start trying to find places where you can imagine you have problems. Like, oh yeah, I see how that could solve this problem that maybe I have. I'll try that thing. No, if you have a bottleneck like you of tons of inbound leads and you're only scratching the surface on getting them and you want to convert more, like that is a problem. Yeah, look for a tool that can solve that. But like, do you have a problem where you can't post on social media? I don't know if you have that problem. I don't.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to look for a tool to solve that problem I don't have.
That makes sense. And do you think people go and create those problems that they don't have just to distract themselves from the day-to-day business?
Yeah, the day-to-day business sucks.
Yeah.
I feel like all of us know exactly what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And honestly, I could probably grow our business much faster just hammering what I know I need to do, which is just sales. Man, if I had 8 of these podcasts lined up every single day, I could probably grind and I could probably get that done. But that would suck. Just spend a little bit more time doing the sucky thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's funny, man. It's funny you say that because you might not know this, but like I'm doing 4 a day right now. And it's obviously to spotlight, people like yours, but also I think it was like a good internal thing to be like, all right, I can meet more people. I can reconnect with awesome people like you. I can do all these things. But it was funny. My CMO yesterday, he said, I think the biggest reason why I wanted to lock you in the podcast room is so you stop messing around with AI. Just kind of like you said, right? It's funny. It's like if you go sit in this room, Justin, for 4 45-minute calls a day, you're going to create some awesome social media content. We don't have an issue there, right? You get to reconnect with all these people you've met on the road. You get to spotlight their businesses, right? You get to put goodwill into the world, and you're not on AI for 4 hours. Now you're going to come out and now if you want to play with AI for the next 5 hours of your day, you're welcome to, because you, like as you said, you kind of got the suck out, first.
That's very smart of your CMO. Very smart.
Like you might not be able to see it, but the door's locked right now. I have to get all these interviews done before I'm allowed out. It's kind of bullshit if you ask me. But beside that, so man, so talk to me about that. Like you obviously talk about a little bit differently than a lot of business owners, which I appreciate because we're kind of similar in that regards. I was not this way years ago, but you talk about maybe sacrificing some sales and some things like that to build things the right way, right? You could maybe go get another 20% of sales if you went more shallow. You didn't go as deep. So like what's your long-term play with the company, right? Is it to exit it one day? Is it to build a business that change? I know you were just chatting about your wife and, you got kiddos and things like that, on the way. So like what for you is like the motivation to keep growing it? Because I'm sure you make great money now, right? From everything I know, you could just kind of sit on your hands and not grow it and probably get some more time back with your family, and things like that. So like, what's your motivation to keep going, to keep growing?
Especially being a male, we want to build a great thing. So I want to build a great thing, and then I want to exit and be able to point at it and say like, hey, that was a great thing that we built, and then someone wanted it and paid X amount of money for. I want to hold that trophy.
That's awesome.
Of course, to have the money too, I want to be able to take care of my parents and, of course, take care of myself and my family. But that trophy would be pretty cool.
I love that. Have you, and the reason I ask is this is kind of where I'm at in my journey, because I'm the same way. I saw a guy named Marshall Haas who owns somewhere.com, another VA company, and I'm kind of getting to see the post life that he's living now. And, have you thought about like once you go and sell it for whatever your number is, or, whatever that looks like for you, like how have you prepared yourself to like be ready for that next chapter? Because I know like a lot of entrepreneurs talk about like depression, or they had their self-identity wrapped up in it, and things like that. So like, like they know you as the closebot guy, but if you don't know closebot anymore, it's like, well, now you're just Bryce, right? Which Bryce is himself a great person. But I always think for myself, I'm like, well, if I'm just Justin, I'm not as cool as Justin, the VA company owner. So like, how have you started to like prepare / work on yourself to be prepared for when that exit comes?
I love to learn, so I've never had a problem with becoming the next version of myself. Before the AI stuff at Boeing that occupied all my time, I was the language learning guy. I taught about language learning. I had a language learning website, fluent in Italian and German. Before that, I was all about gymnastics, and I was known for flashy tricks on the street in Rapid City. That was my whole identity. So I have no problem
reinventing. There's not a lot of them. Which street? There's not a lot of streets in Rapid City.
It was the one that they always shut down for the summer nights.
Yeah, exactly. Which one
I'd go there and put out a bucket for dollar bills.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. What years were you there, man?
I graduated in 2015.
Okay, so 15 was my first year there. Okay, so. Yeah, so that's awesome. For those that are listening, we went to the South Dakota School of Mines out in Rapid City, South Dakota. And I remember the first time I went out there to play football, And I remember the first time they took us there, I think in my haze of being a high school student, they took me out to Black Hill State and called that South Dakota School of Mines. And then I came out there and I went, this isn't what I remember on my recruiting trip. And they're like, oh, yeah. I was like, I thought there was like women, like everywhere. And they're like, no, that was Black Hill State, not the School of Mines. And I'm like, I feel like I got duped here, but amazing school.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, gotcha. I got him here.
That keeps you focused.
Yeah, he does. It does. It's true. It was funny. Just kind of like side story. Like my wife and I were somehow talking about like sororities and frats. She comes from colleges that was much more of a thing than the School of Mines engineering college was. And she's like, yeah, did you ever go to like your guys' frat house? I'm like, I don't even think I ever stepped foot. I didn't even know we had a frat. I went to the school, was on the football team, and I didn't even know we had a frat house. Like that's how like much you can focus, at a school like that. So I was like, I didn't even know we had one.
How long were you there?
I was there 2.5 years. So it was, I didn't ever step foot into the frat house until after I left and got into the real estate game and went back to visit some friends. And I was like, wait, this was here while I was in college? I was totally not paying attention. So that's funny.
Good.
I love it. What's man, like for you guys, like I know you're building like I know you went from version 1 to version 2, and you guys have been reiterating yourself. Like is there anything on the horizon that's like super exciting, like that maybe not everybody knows, or like like what are you guys like, when you say you're working on something, like what are you working on? Like I know you're going deeper, you're building the base up, but is there anything exciting that you're like, man, I can't wait for this to come out, in the next year? What does that look like for you guys?
We don't know a year out.
Yeah.
We focus on quarters.
I love it.
Over the next quarter, we have a lot of split testing tools coming out. They're really like, there are other people that do conversational AI, sales AI for setting, but systems that have a good setup for split testing to see how different prompts result in earned revenue or booked appointments doesn't really exist yet. That comes out this week, and then we'll have a long time. Sure, like I said, you release something, and then it's like, oh, can we have it do this and this and this and this, and we'll spend some time fulfilling that. But I'm really excited for the split testing.
Nice. So let me ask you this. This is again a selfish question, but I think it might spotlight your software as someone like for me. Like I know some of my clients that use you, they're in the home services business. Like they have the same 4 to 5 issues, right? Like always a pipe is broken, or always I'm reaching out to try and do a carpet cleaning, or same general customer. For someone like us, we have dude, I'll talk to someone, and you just said gymnastics earlier. Like I had a Facebook lead come in this morning. She's like, I own a gymnastics studio and I need help with my back end office work. Right. And then I had someone else that's, I own a cheerleading camp. We had another mom that's like, well, I own a makeup business. And then next thing you know, we're talking to a Fortune 500 that needs a 50-person sales floor. And these are all people that are coming into our sales system. And so I know like when our virtual assistants back in the day, before they had oversight, were texting, we're sending the same message to the soccer mom, the gymnastics mom that runs a business, as we were the Fortune 500 company. Like what kind of context is CloseBot using when they're starting these conversations? Because like for us, those customers are completely different, and we've never figured out a great way like how to have a different conversation with those different types of ICPs, as we would call them.
Yeah. So if they're coming in through a form, you can use variables within CloseBot and give it context on.
So like if our form, if they ask questions like, what's your business, for example?
Yeah. So if it knows that, it'll naturally shape the conversation to meet that person where they're at.
Interesting.
We released our first of our native chat channels, our own chat widget recently. And that looks at the site view history, pages they've viewed on our site, so we can tell, oh, they've viewed the pricing page a bunch of times and now they're chatting with us. Pricing is probably really important with them, and the agent will naturally know that.
And that's on your chat widget?
Yeah.
Interesting. So if our company has like 2,000 website hits a month, would that be something that you say would be a big feature for a company like ours, where people are looking at pricing, looking at different VA options, would be for us to be able to see what are they doing on our website? How can I instantly respond to those people live on there?
Do you have a chat widget on there right now?
No.
Yeah.
And I think 2,000's low. I think we're probably closer to 8 to 10,000 unique users a month come to our website. So, because
that would be a fun experiment to run.
Yeah. Because there's no booking, right? Like there's no booking, like there's no, I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of people, hundreds, if not thousands, that come to the website. They click around. They don't want to book a call on our calendar, page, but they would probably respond if someone said, hey, what are you looking for? And then take them through that sequencing of booking a call.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So on that same note, like, CloseBot can take them through, CloseBot's objectives, right? I think a lot of times, like you said, is book a call. Can you put other objectives for CloseBot in there? Like, can it learn, like, hey, in certain situations, maybe we shouldn't book a call, right? Maybe we should send them this PDF or this link, or maybe I can try and get them to go register for a webinar. Like, what's the flexibility within the system? And I'm sure it's only going to get better over time, right? As it grows and you guys, go further and further. But like,
it's changed a lot. Objectives are more legacy.
Okay.
We now do a lot of work that's fully agentic. So we have an agent node that has access to a bunch of different tools. A tool might be getting availability, or booking an appointment on a calendar, or pulling in Shopify information, updating the contact in your CRM. You give an agent access to all the tools and the instruction. And then that's how it works.
Interesting.
It can handle whatever scenarios you want.
Interesting. So, because like for us right now, like we obviously take a ton of sales calls, like, so much that sometimes we can't even handle them all. And so one of the things that we found is a lot of the leads that are lower in our funnel, like, okay, I'm not ready for a phone call yet, right? I'm not quite to that stage. We found that we have a huge conversion rate when we get them registered for a webinar, right? And I know our team right now, it's kind of like an afterthought, right? They're like, all right, well, everybody that didn't book a call, maybe we'll invite them to a webinar, right? And they'll have to go look at all 2,000 leads, and we'll split them up amongst a team of 20. And it's like, well, now you all have to manually text 100 people, where I could kind of see, in your system, it can probably recognize, like, okay, they're not ready for a call yet because of their revenue level, or, maybe they only need a VA for 2 hours a week and we only service 20 plus hours a week. So like, I think being able to sell different things to that prospect and not just a book call, that's what we're doing right now. We're just jamming book calls down their throat. And if it doesn't fit, you really just don't have a place in our follow-up. So that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
And speaking to that too, it's kind of weird that, like, you're a VA company. You're talking to me, who a lot of people see CloseBot as a competitor to VA companies, and that's not the case at all. You obviously know that, but a lot of people don't. Of course. And I preach, like, keep AI where AI should belong, which is like, VAs should not be spending their time chatting with people that are tire kicker, time wasters. They should be trained up well enough to be like closing actual revenue. That's the fun job anyway. They shouldn't be doing the shit job. Sorry, I don't know if that's okay to say on this podcast.
No, absolutely.
But we have found that we have taken our VAs that were previously doing the shit job, and now they're elevated to a higher role of more of a closer, because CloseBot's doing the shit job for them.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, man. It was funny. Someone the other day goes, well, what if AI replaces all humans? And I said, what's interesting, because they were trying to, like, say VAs may go away. And I said, well, and I'm sure we all have different beliefs on it, but I said, let's just assume AI takes all human jobs, and it starts whacking all these important high paying jobs in America. I said, what's interesting about the VA world, because, I'm sure all of our VAs from across the world, right? And it's an increased global pool. I said, what's interesting is the VA business would actually grow if high paying jobs started to get whacked across the United States, because companies are going to be looking for ways to save profit and save margin, and VAs are still a great option for that. But you said it perfectly. Like, we haven't seen a reduction at all. And it's mostly because these businesses are playing with things like Jarvis and all these crazy things. And it's like, they're distracted. And when a VA comes in, they're doing different things, right? All day long. So crazy.
Crazy. It's changed a little bit. It's changed the work that they do.
Well, and it's interesting
better.
because also like, yeah, and I'd say a lot of times when you enable the VAs with good AI too,
Yeah.
like, it's even a whole nother level. I know sometimes my VAs come to me and I'm like, did you go to college last week? It's like most of the VAs we hire, they already have college degrees, but I'm like, oh, your degree was in marketing. You just brought me a financial portfolio, or analysis pro forma, and I was like, where did you learn this? They're like, oh, I just put it in AI, and then and I'm like, oh wow, right? And so I think it's kind of scary, honestly. I tell all Americans all day long, I'm like, from the Philippines, from Latin America, from anywhere in the world, even South Africa now, I'm like, you should be scared because if you think you're replaceable now, you start seeing the whole world adopt AI, and there's a cost labor savings, depending on what country you're getting VAs from. I said it's kind of scary. Like, to compete, you're gonna have to learn AI. There's in the Philippines, I think last week I saw 2 articles where they're popping up full AI colleges where they're just building colleges just to learn AI, so that way
And you
they
don't
can
see
learn
that
it.
here in the
Yeah, you
United
don't see it all here. I mean, I saw yesterday, Bryce, I think I saw someone say that the solution is to go to a trade school to make sure you're in an industry that never goes away. And I'm like, we think our solution is to tell everybody to go to trade school so they're in an industry that doesn't go away. Yet overseas, they're like, well, let's just go learn what's going to be the next big thing. It's like kind of like an abundance versus scarcity mindset, which I thought was always really interesting.
That's
So,
interesting.
yeah, I'm like, we're over here going, protect yourself, and over there they're like, charge, like, how can we go embrace it, which
They
I
have
think
such
is,
an intensity for learning.
yeah. Well, and I mean, dude, now let me ask you this: when you were at Boeing, like, their labor force, it probably was not just like, where were you at? Were you in Seattle at that time, or like, where were you at with Boeing?
Yeah.
Okay, that was just a guess. I just assumed all a bunch of buddies went to Boeing too. So, but like, what was the labor force there? Because I know my dad, he worked at IBM all the 2000s, and they were like, a lot of people think that these companies go and take jobs to Malaysia or India or things for cost savings. And as respectful as I can be to my fellow Americans, I think a lot of times we don't even care about the cost savings. We care about the hunger of education and just their work ethic, but also their knowledge, right? I would say my VA team many times is smarter than most Americans. And that's not even with me considering a wage difference in there. So like, when you were at Boeing, man, did Boeing have a team, in India, overseas, or were you 100% US based?
No, they outsourced everything they could. Obviously,
Wow.
you can't outsource building the physical plane that has to be
Of
built
course.
in
Yeah.
in the factory, but all the dev work, all the process work, teams all over the place. And yeah, they come with just a hunger for learning and work ethic. And like, we have people on our support team. Yes, we have people on our support team. The first level is AI, but people want to talk to people all the time. And we have assistants who are like, hey, I can't sit and do nothing if there's no one in support. My conscience will not let me. Like, what else can I do to help bring the company value? Because we're like, I don't know, just sit there and wait for chats to come in. And they're like, listen, I can't do that.
Yeah.
It's stealing from you.
Wow.
You don't get that in America.
No, not at all. It's funny. We've grown our sales team from probably like 5 people 2 years ago to like 20. And we've been going through like this accountability shift. And it's like, it's like, it used to be, I needed to get people to work 20 hours a week. And now I'm like, guys, we need to work 40 hours a week. And it's just always been interesting, like the shift that you have to make to get someone to, work a full 40-hour a week. Like, it's crazy. Where in the Philippines, we have to many times pull our people back. It's like, John, you've worked 52 hours. I'm like, why? He's like, I love it. And I'm like, all right, well, like, you got kids, you got family. It's time for you to stop. Like, we need you to go home and hang out with your family, so it's interesting. Well, one culture, you have to pull them back. And the other culture, you have to be like, can you please I'm not asking much. Just hit your 40 hours a week, please. I just think it's so interesting. Man, let me ask you another question. Let me ask you another question on this note, because I haven't had any guests in the last week or two that have had the situation. Whenever I think of CloseBot, a lot of times, just from like Facebook and different things, like, I don't even think of you. I think of your wife and all the things she's doing with the company. And I'm like, who's the owner of CloseBot? And sometimes I'm like, oh, here you go. So like, how is it working with your spouse? Right. Because, I think she went to a school of mines too, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So probably smarter than you. right? Like, so
Oh,
like,
so many ways.
so talk to me about that. Like, how are you guys making that work?
It's been a learning journey. What got me into real estate was she was a realtor. I saw her
Okay.
making as much money as I was at Boeing as an engineer, and I was like, "That's bullshit. I can do it too." Left to do sales and found out no, she's actually just a baller, and
Yeah.
there's no way I can amount to that. So I'm going to go dabble in tech some more. Um, she has so much more. It was hard. Okay, let me back up. It was hard at the beginning, but we learned through the process of real estate, and now with CloseBot, it's just so natural. We know what my strengths are, what her strengths are, how we communicate well together. I'm super technical. I like to code and do like higher level thinking stuff, but my lower level thinking stuff kind of sucks. There
Yeah.
are times where I'm doing things that don't make common sense. And she's like, "Hey, notice you're doing this thing. There's an easier way." And I'm like, "Oh, I never thought about it that way." So she calls me on that, keeps me operationally sound. And then she has the ADHD power brain. So she is also our finance,
Okay.
our legal, our human resources lead. She does so much different
Wow.
stuff.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Talk to me about the world of SaaS. Like, as we kind of wrap up here in the last few minutes, like, like obviously software as a service, it has a recurring component to it, right? I think, I always used to make fun of coaches in our industry, right? Because you'd be like, they would have some success and then they'd go coach, right? I think there's a lot of people that have some success and they try and go make a software. And I used to make fun of them. I used to like be like, you're an idiot. You're so dumb. And yet then I realized as I grew in my entrepreneur journey, it's not that they wanted to be a coach or maybe they wanted to own a software because they had the technical background. I think a lot of people are like chasing like recurring revenue, because it is like so life changing, right? You guys probably felt it from real estate to this, like whether it's a good recurring revenue or a bad recurring revenue, you at least know what the recurring revenue is going to be, right? So you wake up to something, and I'm sure that helps with hiring and projections and, all those different things. So talk to me about like, the power of recurring revenue. Like, how did that like change your guys's like ability to grow versus when you were in real estate where it was maybe one-time commissions that were big, but sometimes maybe spotty?
Yeah. What two extremes to go from? There was a month, 2 months in a row where I made 100,000 plus in real estate. And then I didn't make a dime for 6 more months after
Wow.
that. And so it's hard to, you're constantly hiring people, hiring the VAs and then letting them go. And then you go to hire them again. They took a different job naturally. So then you have to bring on someone new and train them up, and you have a good month and then you have to fire that person again. It's just working uphill the whole time. Whereas recurring revenue is more like you push a boulder and it's hard to push at first. But then once you get that boulder moving down the hill, once you find traction, it's almost impossible to stop it.
Yeah, I love that. Have you ever had months like where because you're a high growth company, right? You're growing, then you plateau. Like, talk to me about the plateau. I know, like for us, when we would plateau, like we're in a little bit of a plateau right now. We've grown every single month for our entire 6-year history. We've had 2 months where we just didn't really grow that much, right? We didn't go back, but we didn't go forward. Our churn matched our customer acquisition, right? It's always funny. We're like, our first 100 customers is just to cover the 100 customers we know we're going to lose, right? At the volume we're at now. And so like, but talk to me about the plateaus. Like, I know for me, the plateaus have been like, I'm not as anxious as I used to be in real estate because I'm like, we're still making money. I'm still getting my salary. So like, talk to me, like, have you had plateaus? Like, or have you just grown every month
Oh
forever?
yeah,
Like talk to me about
absolutely. Things are changing so much in SaaS that you have to constantly be fighting for product market fit is what we
that.
call it. Like making sure you are building something that your clients need and they know that they need it and it's providing the value. It can be hard to constantly fight that. Something new comes out, takes their attention, and then you see just drop off, drop off, drop off. And that can be rough. But yeah, you're not going to lose 100%. You're not even going to lose 10%.
Uh-uh.
Like that would be drastic.
Yeah.
So you have time to make it up.
Yeah. Well, no, that totally makes sense. Now, talk to me about how have you guys grown? Like, has it been word of mouth only? Like, I know you've had different avenues you've tried to grow. Like, are you guys have any plans to change it up? Like, from a business owner standpoint, how have you guys grown your company?
It's been largely off of word of mouth, affiliates. We are in the HubSpot marketplace, high level marketplace. High level shares the word about CloseBot whenever their built-in stuff doesn't do enough of what people want. Trying to crack ads.
Okay.
That can be a hard thing to crack. So still working on that.
I love that. Talk to me about like, why is it hard to crack? Because I actually just had an episode a day or two ago, and I think I know why it's probably hard to crack. But I'd love to hear like, is it the LTV? Is it the amount of spend the cost per acquisition, and then recovering it in the LTV, or like what is it for you guys that's hard to crack?
Yeah, when the acquisition cost is equal to the lifetime value of the customer, and our marketing agency calls that a win.
Yeah.
That happened last November, and I fired him on the spot.
You're like, no, there's
Are you
no
kidding
margin.
me? That is your goal?
Oh man, that's crazy. Cause like, I mean, we're the same way, man. Like if we spend $100,000 on ads, like in a great month, we might want to recoup 40 of it. Right. And then we obviously make it up. But I mean, I think your LTV has to be at least 2 of what you acquired, at least, right? Because you're still going to lose a lot more in between. So it's interesting. I always like to ask that question because I think ads are such a, I think a lot of people think they're just going to grow their next SaaS. Like they might think, I'm going to be the next CloseBot because I'm just going to turn on Facebook ads. And it's like, well, it doesn't quite work that way. Like it's
distribution is so hard.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but you probably live in a world of SaaS where you might have some competitors that will free this, free that, free this, free that, even though the customer may not stay very long, but you can't all of a sudden spin up CloseBot and charge a $5,000 setup fee to cover your ad spend because the market just doesn't allow for that, unless I'm wrong there.
No, totally right.
Yeah.
And fighting misinformation, there are platforms that they don't know what CloseBot does, but people ask about CloseBot to them and then they lie.
Yeah.
So they'll cancel their CloseBot plan and say, oh, I get this over there and you guys don't have that. And it's like, oh, we do.
Yeah.
You didn't know that we did that?
Or it's named something different, right?
Yeah. Right.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you say that like Go High Level recommends you guys, because I think a lot of people might assume like, oh, High Level has, this feature and that feature. But I think you said it perfectly, like not to say High Level shallow, but they have way more features. They have way more things. And I think for you guys, like you go way more in depth on your of conversational AI, right? Maybe they'll get there one day, but I think it's you recognize it of them and they recognize it of themselves. And at the end of the day, they're just serving their customer at the highest level to go, oh, if you need more depth in that feature, check out CloseBot, right? Which I think is so cool. Yeah. Like, talk to me about that. Like, I know you guys, like, it was funny. I think online, I think I saw some stuff maybe 6 months ago. I always just kind of glance and have a good memory, but I know you were like, CloseBot versus High Level, and you're getting questions. And then I know you guys like did some partnership, like a webinar or something. I think I even saw the other day. So like, talk to me about that. Like, how are you partnering literally with a company that literally has products that are trying to do exactly what you guys do, maybe just not as well, right? So talking about that, like, how did you pull that off?
Yeah, we were listed on their illegal document stating us as a competitor.
I remember that because then you couldn't sponsor? Like it prevented you from
doing tons of affiliates that said they couldn't promote us anymore because they were endorsed affiliates at High Level. They had to sign this agreement saying they wouldn't endorse XYZ platforms, and we were on there.
Wow.
And since then, I've had conversations with Varun, who's their CTO.
Yeah.
And they want people in the High Level ecosystem to install apps in the High Level marketplace because they've seen that drastically improves retention. That means people found a hole where they needed something that High Level didn't offer. And instead of leaving to a different CRM, they were able to find something that filled that. High Level is starting to realize that, especially with AI, where it's so easy for people to replicate High Level. It really is, because it is shallow. It's easy to say, hey, Claude, make High Level. High Level has tons of bugs. They go shallow in many features. We love them for what they do, but it's relatively easy to replicate. What's not easy to replicate is all the integrations in their marketplace. So they've started to put more focus on that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. And I think that's too, like, just, I mean, because you could have went out there and you could have just been like, F this, F that, like, I hate them. But like you were able just to get in contact with real people that could sit down at the table and go, let's make a win-win out of this. And I think that's so cool, because I think like a lot of competitors, they'll badmouth someone, or you could have went out and, tried to make a smear campaign. And it really just sounds like, you were able to sit down and go, hey, how do we make this a win-win for both of us, and, increase your retention and increase their retention. Which I think
was eye-opening for me. Some people came to me during that whole time of turmoil, and we filled a need they had, but they canceled CloseBot just because they knew we weren't getting along. And they were like, well, if they're not getting along, I'm not going to invest more time into CloseBot, and I'm going to go make it work if I can in GHL or something else that they're not fighting with.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we repaired that. Yeah, it's always better to get along with people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. Rob and Alex, they actually hold their Dallas chapter events here in our new headquarters, which is just outside this wall. And we were talking about something the other day on stage when I was interviewing him, and he was talking about the AI and the different features, and you could just tell repetitively, he's talking about the integrations in the marketplace. And, I thought it was really cool to go, we don't have all the solutions, but we definitely, if we don't have it, we're going to try and plug you in to the best solution, out there in the marketplace, which I think is super, super cool. So, well, man, as we kind of wrap up on this hour, I obviously want to respect the time I had in our calendar, but like, as we kind of close up here, I'll obviously have all your guys' information, places they can go to buy CloseBot. But if you were to like throw a pitch out to like summarize like who CloseBot helps, like who listening to this, because it's usually listened to between 50 to 100,000 people, like who is CloseBot for? And like, just give it to me. Like how can they go sign up? How can they try it out? How can they make sure it's a fit? Are you signing them up for 3-year contracts, or, what are you looping them into, man?
Yeah, good question. We have a totally free account. So you can go make a free account at closebot.com. That's free, no credit card ever. And that's for people who are doing relatively low volume. That'll do 100 replies a month, but that's plenty to like get in there and see how it works. We're built specifically for either agencies or businesses that need a trustworthy, reliable solution. So that's what we focused on. Conversational AI for sales and booking that you can trust. More appointments, more revenue.
Nice. Well, if you guys are watching this, and Bryce, I appreciate you jumping on with me. I know you got some family stuff going on, so you could have easily have canceled. So it means the world to me that you're able to jump on. And with that being said, I'll make sure to plug all your stuff down below. And if you guys are listening here, while we obviously clearly talked about how we don't use them right now, it's got my brain rolling a million miles an hour. I know a lot of our clients use them. I just haven't taken the time to do it. So I look forward to jumping on that free account myself and getting my CMO to check it out, because I think we're leaving a lot of money on the table. And I know if we're leaving a lot of money on the table, I know a lot of our followers, that have learned our systems and our process for follow-up, they use the CRMs we've suggested. They're probably running a very similar process to us, and they're like, oh, we're leaving money on the table too. So I love that, man. Well, I appreciate, you jumping on with us. And with that being said, any last parting words of wisdom? I always like to ask one last question. If there was any piece of advice, like the most vague advice, but you think it would make the biggest impact, what advice would you have for business owners? The guy yesterday said, never quit. The person before said, no matter what happens, just keep going. We had someone else say, hey, make sure that you have your P&L in order, right? So we've had some crazy ones, but if you had to give like a super vague piece of advice to just a business owner listening, whether they're succeeding, they're struggling, like what would that be from you as a super successful business owner yourself?
I think know the power of saying no to the right things.
Wow. I love that. That's something I could definitely be better at all the time.